So, good morning, everyone. Inakwana, Antashi Lafia, Kunshirya, Togarishina Kamuku Dike Chukwumerije. And then Tafa Mishika. Haba Kanawa, and Kaduna swing Pierre when Kaduna people did better than this. Let the whole resound. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to moderate this panel with my brother, Dike Chukwumerije. But before we get into it, I want to throw something out to the audience. Which of Dike's poems have you listened to? Which ones do you like the most? A random sampling. I have a hand there. Yes. Which one? Oh, Nai, is it true? Huh? Okay. Which other poems? The Wall and the Bridge, I heard that. Okay, excellent. So, Dike Chukwumerije is a Nigerian author, performance poet, and cultural advocate whose work blends literature, theater, music to explore themes of identity, unity, and social change. He was born on the 11th of July 1979 in Surulere, Lagos, and hails from Uwenochi in Abia State. It's just by the Ogu Hills, if you know Enugu very well. And he grew up in a home steeped in storytelling and activism, influenced by his father, the late Senator Uche Chukwumerije, and his mother, Grace Nwonyibo Iweka, from the Iweka family of Obosi. His father, the very nearly larger-than-life Uche Chukwumerije, was one of Nigeria's notable socialists and a radical leftist in the 70s. His mother is a natural storyteller and a healthy living advocate who served in the presidency in the Obasanjo and Yar'Adua administrations. Dike himself is a law graduate of the University of Abuja and holds a master's in Law and Development from the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. He has published multiple books, including Orichindere, which won the Association of Nigeria's Prize for Prose Fiction. He's the founder of the Night of the Spoken Word and the creator of the acclaimed stage production Made in Nigeria, which has toured several cities to critical acclaim. Through his performances, such as the widely celebrated The Wall and the Bridge, Dike has become a leading voice in using art to challenge stereotypes, inspire civic responsibility, and promote national unity. Named among the top 100 most influential Africans in 2016, he continues to mentor emerging poets and push the boundaries of performance poetry in Nigeria. His philosophy is rooted in the belief that art is not just entertainment, but a transformative force capable of shaping consciousness and bridging divides, making him a vital figure in Nigeria's contemporary cultural landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, Dike Chukwumerije. So, Dike, inevitably, my first question has to go to origins, the origins of your own writing and your sense of your own distinct literary personality. In my case, it came from growing up to meet my father's books, most of which were bought in this city. He would buy these books, read them, and put them in a carton. And that carton became my library when I was growing up. So what was it like for you growing up? What was the story of the origins of your own literary sense?
It's not very different from yours, actually. I also grew up with parents that were very, very literary. So my dad, like yours, used to buy books all the time. The house was covered with books. He collected paintings. I grew up with artists. You know, my mother tells stories. My elder brother is a musician. My elder sister is an artist. So I just grew up in that environment. In fact, one of the earliest tasks I used to do for my dad, I must have been in my early teens. We had moved to Abuja at the time. He would just send me to Lagos and just say, buy books. And he would give me this big duffel bag, and I'll go around all the bookshops in Lagos till the bag was full, and then I'll bring it back to Abuja for him. So I grew up with stories. I was telling my kids the other day, we were having a conversation, and one of them is, there's a subject in their school called, I think, international relations or global affairs or something. And I said to her that, I'm not doing well by you. That if I was raising you the way my dad raised me, you wouldn't need to be taking this subject in school. Because when I was growing up, 7 o'clock NTA News, my dad would make us listen to it, summarize it, and then he would mark the script. You know, grammar and all that. So I said, if we're doing this in this house, you don't need to be taking this subject because you'll know all these things just by listening to the news. He was a journalist, obviously, so I think anybody from that background, the place is littered with books and literature. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So my second point, because we're in Kano, and I don't know whether I'm going to have an opportunity for this. I'm a bit keen to know a little bit more about your life. As I mentioned, was anybody here born in 1979? 1979, anybody? Older than that? Look at you. Okay, so you were born at the very tail end of the 70s, right? Which gives you an immense breadth of the Nigerian experience. You basically turn a decade older just before the decade turns. So could you put us through your paces, through the decades as you've seen them, looking back now with the eyes of a poet? How was it? The 80s when you were young, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. Let's date you a little bit, huh?
The 80s were a beautiful time. I grew up in a place in Lagos called Shomolu. We lived in a compound, and all the kids would come out and play. And I remember the yellow Danfo buses used to go by the gates of our compound, and the gates were always open. And it gives you a sense of the safety and the communal nature of things at that time. The 90s for me were obviously secondary school and university days. I went to secondary school in Lagos, I went to university in Abuja, University of Abuja, when it was still a glorified secondary school, as they used to call it in those days. And it was also a beautiful time. The school used to be located in a place in Abuja called Gwagwalada. And when you come out to the express road, I think I was talking with Suleiman and I was telling him that we'll just jump into a bus. You go to Kaduna to the left, to the right you're going to Lokoja, you're going to Lagos. There was no sense of danger. I grew up in Lagos, so when I came to Abuja, I'd never really been to the north, and I really wanted to explore the north. So I had a habit, my classmates knew, I can just show up in your house during holiday, no warning. I'll go to Jos, I'll go to Kaduna, I'll just show up in your place. My best friend lived in Kaduna, and I'd never been to his house. So one day during holiday, I was bored, so I just told my dad I want to go to Kaduna. He said, okay. I went to the bus park, took a taxi. All I knew was that he lived in Barnawa, GR. That was all I knew. I didn't know his address, nothing. I took a taxi to Kaduna. I dropped in Barnawa, and I started asking people, do you know a certain Jafar from southern Kaduna? His father died last year. That's how I found his house. I'm telling you, he wasn't at home. The mother opened the gate, said, who are you? I said, I'm Dike, I'm Jafar's friend from school. She said, I said, come in. And that's how I spent 3 days in her house. So it was a beautiful time. The 2000s, there was a lot of hope. Democracy had just come back. I remember the day it was announced that Abacha had passed. It was a very weird day in Abuja. People didn't know what emotion to show because they thought it was a trick. And that if you express If you rejoice, they will note your name down and they will pick you up after. So everybody was just quiet, but after he passed, it was a sense that possibilities were limitless at the time. I went to the UK to do a master's, and honestly, I was so reluctant because Nigeria was bubbling, Nigeria was opening up. So the sense of Japa was the opposite. People were coming back to Nigeria. At that time, people like El Rufai, Soludo were all young, and it was so beautiful to see these young technocrats in government, and everybody had so much hope. So I was one of those that also came back full of hope that we're going to move the country forward. That hope fell to the ground. So the 2010s, we sort of started seeing the beginning of frustration, hopelessness. It began to mount. By the mid-2010s, for us in the Southeast, that was the first time it really gave birth to this malignant, virulent, toxic, anti-Nigeria sentiment that took over the airwaves. And it was a very dark time and a very difficult time for people like me. And obviously now we're in the 2020s that we're all experiencing together, where bread is 2,000 naira, a loaf of bread. And for those of us that have 4 children in school,
Septembers are
I
problematic.
shouldn't have gray hair. I really shouldn't have gray hair at this age. But that's what's happening. Economy.
Thank you very much. I asked that question in order to be able to give a breadth of your experience to the younger ones here. So let's go to the meat of the matter, right? Into your work. Your poem. I hesitate to say it's perhaps your most favorite work, or your most famous work, but The Wall and the Bridge, right? In The Wall and the Bridge, you use the metaphor of physical and emotional structure to speak about Nigeria's divisions. Some of the stuff that Suleiman Malumfashi and Dr. Maradon spoke about, the ethnic differences, religious differences, it has really traveled very, very far. I think you performed it in KwaZulu-Natal, and then of course at the Economic Summit group. I remember the line, before you smile and tell me welcome, you stop to ask where my father is from. And that line really, really remained with me. So my question is this really in line with the theme of the festival. In moments of national crisis, which in Nigeria are so many these days, when these walls, as it were, when they seem to grow taller and higher everywhere you go, it's no longer even my tribe, it's my local, my ethnic group, my clan is better than your clan. All sorts of things go on. How do you see poetry functioning as a bridge that people are willing to cross? What does a poet do when the people themselves seem to insist on walls everywhere? So that's my question.
Richard, I warned you. I begged you. Don't ask me jam question. Well, in a nutshell, that's what my entire career has been. Talking against the tide, talking against the mainstream. Like you rightly said, the consciousness of tribe is rooted in Nigerian culture. It's right in our foundation, from the way the country was put together, from the way it was formed, the consciousness of tribe was there. And when you are trying to correct something that is that deep-rooted, you have to be very, very patient. And you also have to be very, very gentle, because people hold these things very dear to their hearts. But what I have found out in my own career is that the human heart, for me, is the solution. I don't try and speak to people's brain. I try and speak to the heart, because beneath all the hijabs you may be wearing and the babarigas, joy, pain, fear, sorrow, hope the desire to leave a better world for our children is all the same everywhere you go. And you know that I'm one poet, I don't know if there's any other poet like that has made the effort to go around the country on my own with this message. So I've been to every part of Nigeria, every geopolitical zone, with the message, not that government sent me or anybody funded me. I got up and I went by myself. And one of the things that gave me hope is that everywhere I went, I found people of like mind. So I know that there is the rhetoric of tribalism and there's also the reality of humanity everywhere you go. And that it's a question of amplifying those voices. I can tell you for a fact that I have performed the same poem in 21 states in Nigeria, the same set of poems, no difference in 21 states in Nigeria. And in every of those states, everybody laughed at the same places, and everybody sighed at the same places. So when people tell me that Nigerians are divided, I know that it's not true. That Nigerians are they have as many things that bind them as divide them. So it gives me a lot of hope to continue to speak. I don't really expect to see results in my lifetime, in all honesty. All I'm doing is sowing seeds. But once you put a seed in the ground, it must grow. Whether it is next year or 50 years from now, once you drop a seed in the human spirit, it must germinate at some point. And I have that faith. So I continue to speak. And obviously I meet people like you and everybody else sitting in this hall. And you just know that yes, you may look different from me, you're wearing your cap, you're wearing your kaftan. But when we talk, there's so much commonality. And I've seen this over and over again in all parts of the country. So I know that there's a lot of hope for us as a more integrated society.
So basically, yeah, it deserves a round of applause. So basically, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. You've performed your set of your various poems, but even this one on the wall and the bridge, in several places. In these places, have you noticed a shift in the mood of the audience? Some performers speak of that moment when that almost transcendental connection with an audience where it almost seems like you see the assumptions breaking down. Have you had those sorts of moments, with the wall and the bridge or any of your poems? I'd love to hear a bit about that.
I have. I'll tell you a story. One of the earliest times, early in my career, for me anyway, and I was invited to perform at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. At the time, it was in fact, at the time, poets didn't get those kinds of opportunities. It was unheard of. So when I was sitting right at the back, and it was at Transcorp Hilton in Abuja, high level Congress Hall. Is full of business leaders, political leaders, high level people. Everybody is wearing what looks to me like designer suits, shining shoes, impeccable kaftans and agbadas and caps. And I'm there in my jeans and shirts that is rolled up on the sleeves because I don't have a fashion sense, absolutely zero. And I'm sitting right at the back of the hall. And then they introduce me and I can see people saying poet. What's his poet? And I have to do this long walk from the back, and everybody is looking at me like, what's this guy doing here? And the t-shirt, my hair is bushy and my beard is bushy. And I look like I just rolled out of bed. And then I get onto the podium. Up till then, you know how these conferences are, apologies, but they can be a bit boring. Speeches, people are dozing off a bit. I get on stage and I start by singing a song. As I start singing, everybody looks up. What's going on? Is it Tales by Moonlight? Is it what's going? And then I do this poem. And honestly, I could see the lights coming on in that room. Honestly, it was a transformative moment for me. I could just see the light. Look, poetry is a powerful thing. When I finished, the standing ovation I got was, they didn't know when they stood up. They didn't know when they stood up. And I feel so embarrassed because there were so many high-level people there. But the way I was brought up, I'm not a protocol person. So as I finished, I just went straight. I didn't look at anybody. I didn't shake anybody's hand. That thing did not, it was not good for
if
my
you collect card now, did you go with your own card? Did you go with your card?
Did you have cards?
I just danced like one prophet from the wilderness. Just came up and went back. But that was at that moment. I'll tell you another one. I was doing my master's in the UK. I just finished my master's. And the Ghanaian students in my where I did my master's, were celebrating 50 years of Ghana's independence. And they heard that I was a poet. And somebody said to me, oh, please, can you come and share a poem? Richard, up to that point, I didn't even know that spoken word poetry was a thing. And when he said, can you come and share your poem? I thought it was the normal poetry gathering, everybody is a nerd. You come with your sweater, your buttoned up shirt, you read your poem, everybody claps. That was what I thought. I got to the venue and it was a rave, like a party. These 17-year-olds, and I was in my late 20s at the time, 17-year-old parties, they were breakdancing, they were rapping. I said, who set me up? How can you invite me to this kind of place to come and do poem? So I was with my girlfriend at the time, we're married now, and I said, look, let's leave this place. And she said, nobody knows you anyway, so if you flop, what's the big deal? Just go and do your poem. So they called me at the height, when the heat, the music was booming. So I went up, I'll never forget this, I was trembling, looking like a nerd, my glasses, my sweater. So I went up on stage, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't sing or dance. And you know what these rude children said? Immediately they started booing. Boo! Get off the stage! Get off the stage! And that triggered the Nigerian in me. I said, who you be? Who you be? I beg you. I beg you. I just removed my phone. I said, you must listen whether you want to or not. I brought out my paper. I wasn't even performing. I just brought out a piece of paper and I started to read. I kid you not, this is how the silence just started falling, like a curtain across the room. Pin drop silence. 17-year-old, pin drop silence. When I finished, the whole hall erupted. That experience gave me confidence that there is power in the word. Yeah.
That's an amazing, amazing recollection. Thank you very much for that. So the theme for KapFest this year is poetry in a time of crisis. We've talked around this in our previous questions and answers, but it actually goes directly to your own career as a writer. You've written and performed through political upheaval, economic strain, social unrest, So my question really is, how do you do it? How do you sustain your creative voice when the Nigerian environment generally feels really overwhelming and even hostile to truth-telling, the sort of truth-telling that poets naturally, inevitably do? The Nigerian environment tends to be hostile to this. So how do you do it? Personally, I often feel very drained, and there are longer and longer periods when no writing at all is done, no engagement. But you have stayed engaged, the Made in Nigeria, So basically, how do you sustain your creative voice amidst all of this, basically?
Honestly, Richard, I am a stubborn person by nature. Quiet people tend to be. You will not see us shouting, but we are very hard to move once we've taken a position. So I'm very stubborn and tenacious by nature. That's one. So that it's my nature. Number two, I've lived abroad. I lived in the UK for 4 years. It's not for me. Abroad is not for everybody. It's not for me. I don't have anywhere else to go. I'm here. You understand? I have nowhere else. Honestly, no options. So that also drives me. It's like my back against the wall. Where do you want me to go again? This is home. We have to. Number three, I am tired of the discrimination, the way black people and African people are seen all around the world. I'm tired of being at the bottom of the pile. I'm tired of being the face of poverty and terrorism and oppression. I'm just tired of it. We need to clean up. We need to fix up. We need to move from here. These things are real motivations for me. I'm already sad. My eldest child is 16. And in fact, that's why I was standing outside. There's no light in the house. And I'm like, this is what I grew up with. Now these children are growing up with the same thing. Like, when do we change this narrative? I thought that by the time I'm having children at this age, Nigeria will be different, but it's still here. And these things, honestly, they motivate me. But more than anything else, I have come to the point in my life where I believe that just do what you can in the space that you are. Not trying to solve all the whole world's problems, but the place where I have influence and the people that I can reach, I will make sure that I am the change that I want to see. And I'll become content with it. So that just keeps me going, regardless of what they are doing out there.
Thank you for that. At the risk of playing the devil's advocate, was there ever a moment when you considered stepping away from it all, from your public role as a poet, as a performer, as a truth teller? There's always that Lot moment or Lot's wife moment when you think, I'm going to turn like, okay, I'll jack one, whatever it is. Did you ever have that moment when you're like, maybe when your son is a year old, you're like, have you ever had that sort of moment? Or has your hope and resilience, has it been unfaltering, basically?
The closest I came to it was 2015, when Buhari came to power. Because the rise of Buhari coincided with the rise of IPOB in the southeast. You will not understand what it feels like to be an Igbo guy who is pro-Nigeria and who had to live through that time. Why I put the two of them? Because Buhari everything Nnamdi Kano had been saying, Buhari seemed to be it. So it gave a lot of energy to that ideology. And for those of us that were from that area, it was very difficult. So I remember this day, I posted something on Facebook talking about one Nigeria. I have never experienced the level of insults, hate. It nearly drained my spirit. I couldn't believe it. My father, my ancestors were dragged out. Everybody was calling me. My mom called me, said, please stop talking in public. Friends I had not heard from, secondary school classmates called and said, what's going on? Stop. That was a low moment for me. A really, really low moment. And at that point, I had to ask myself, is it worth it? And I decided for myself that it was worth it and that I will continue to engage.
Thank you very much. Let's move swiftly to your work in theater, because you're one of the preeminent people who have moved poetry into the realm of theater, with your production, particularly Made in Nigeria, which transformed poetry to a very full sensory experience. Theater, poetry, there's music, movement, the stage, the lights. I've been at Made in Nigeria, I think on three different occasions, and it's always a joy. So your foray into theater has made your poetry difficult to ignore. So why was it so important for you to stage poetry in this way? And what does performance do that the printed page or the stage cannot do? You know, and then of course, particularly, what were the challenges that you faced in your move towards theater or poetry as theater?
My move into theater was motivated by my desire to communicate with lay audiences. I wanted to go beyond the typical audience for poetry that tends to be poets, literary.
And their friends they can drag, or family, they can't help
Exactly.
it. They love them, so they come along.
Drag them in. I wanted to go beyond that. I wanted to go into society with my poetry. And from experimentation, I realized that you have to make it interesting for people, and that so I started putting other elements in, and then it built and became what it became. So that was what motivated me, the desire to communicate. The challenges were that nobody knew what it was. It was hard to define it. Is it a play? So I always have to explain and just come and see. When they come and see, then they understand it. So defining what I was doing was very difficult. And what performance does that the printer cannot do, right, is that it you look at how everybody has sat up. This performance, I just use dramatic pause. And everybody is listening to, waiting for what I'm going to say next. So that's performance. It's okay, it's just water. You know? So that's what performance does. It makes you listen, it makes you absorb what you're doing. I know this is controversial, but I don't really think poetry is meant for page. I don't think that. I think it was an afterthought.
No, but
I think
in
poetry,
traditional societies, it's always the maker, the guy in the griot. It's always basically performative.
yes, it's not spoken, then you write it later. But now the people that write it are behaving like they're our elder brothers. But we are their elder brothers.
We are your elder brothers. Yeah. So, well, anyways, like with Made in Nigeria, you deal with the Nigerian experience over decades. You know, you dance 70s music, the social issues. So, do you think this theatrical approach changes the way audiences engage with difficult themes like Nigeria, which is perhaps the most difficult theme anybody can try to need? You know, so do you feel that this theatrical method, as it were, do you think it changes the way people deal with difficult things?
Absolutely. My first collection of poems was called The Revolution Has No Tribe. It was a written collection of poems. I self-published it. And for 1 year, I could not sell one copy. 1 year, I couldn't sell. I can give away. I couldn't sell one copy for 1 year. I created Made in Nigeria. Many of the poems that were in that book, I put them on stage. And with that stage production, I taught for 7 years, 21 states. And I was paid, sometimes people would buy tickets. I made millions of naira. So when somebody is telling me, it's not an experiment, it's not theory to me. The poem was in the book, nobody bought it. The poem was on stage, people paid to listen to it. That tells you all you need to know about performance and printing.
So, Sami Kanawa who are here, I hope you are taking notes. So, there's a market for productions, you know. Anyway, we'll get to that. So, I'd like to talk about this issue of memory as resistance. History is not just a backdrop in all your work, you know, whether it's Made in Nigeria, whether it's the mirror, the wall and the bridge. history is not just a backdrop, it's an active character in all your work. You visit Nigeria's past in order to illuminate the present, insisting that we remember, for example. Okay, so how can, so still particular to made in Nigeria, right? How can poetry preserve cultural memory and prevent the erasure of important narratives during turbulent times, like the times that we have now? How do you address this issue of, okay, I'll give you an example, particularly from Made in Nigeria. Some of the songs that you danced to in the 70s and 80s, those are songs that my mother grew up on. Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, Christian Bokwe. Yeah. And then she says, oh, it was a black disc, but that was how they had it back then. Yeah. And in that performance alone, you remind us of all these things, So basically, my question is, how does poetry help preserve cultural memory and the erasure of important narratives?
Yeah. I really and truly believe that as artists, we need to curate our experience, our immediate experience. I'm one of those artists that is fully focused on writing to my society. I'm not writing for the West. I'm not writing to be published abroad. I'm not interested in anything abroad. This is my audience. And in fact, I tell people that my greatest, if performing at what are these big spaces, Philharmonic Theatre, all this, I don't know. If I can perform in Sokoto, so when we went to Gombe, we had a hall, almost 1,000 people. I felt more gratified, more fulfilled as a poet to be able to perform in Gombe and they hear and respond than to perform in New York or London and everybody's clapping for me. Because these are my people. These are the people that need to hear what I'm saying. To the other people, I'm just an entertainer. I'm just another poet. But to my people, my words are necessary. So I am truly invested in curating our own experiences, our memory, our culture. And in that show, we're very intentional in using costume from the time, in using music from the time. We have a big visual backdrop, a local artist created, in using images from the time, in using expressions from the time, so that people are transported to the past and they can relive the past. And for people of sort of that generation, late 70s, 80s, even 70s, 80s, a lot of that music that we use was like a time capsule. It took them back. So I really, really believe in, as an artist, being invested in your environment and interrogating your environment. And it shows in my work. And I encourage young artists as well. I know that there is more money, or more immediate money, and more immediate fame to be made from writing to the West or wherever, whatever international audience suits you. But there is greater meaning, and there is the opportunity for immortal relevance in writing to your immediate environment.
Thank you very much. Talking about that, are there historical moments that you feel Nigerians urgently need to remember right now, which are in danger of erasure, for example? And how do you balance the need for historical accuracy in your poetry side by side with the emotional resonance that it tries to capture? So it's more a question about craft.
There are many historical moments that we need to revisit. Some of my favorite ones are, one of the most unknown ones, the 1941 Lagos by-elections. It was a critical moment in Nigerian history for reasons that I won't get into now. The entire nationalist movement and how it fragmented into three parts. It's something that we really need to explore. The genesis of regional politics in Nigeria are things we need to explore. We need to better interrogate our founding generation. We just say Ahmadu Bello, Azikiwe, Awolo. Many of us have never even read them. for themselves. They have biographies, they have autobiographies. These personalities need to be better interrogated to understand what their ideals and visions are. Because a nation is built not on the actions of its founders, but on their ideals. It's not what they did that matters, it's what they were trying to achieve that matters. And we need to understand that. We need to understand better the events of 1966, the two coups, the pogrom, the war. These are things that we have to understand a lot better. When I'm crafting work like this, there is no compromise on accuracy. I rank accuracy above entertainment because Nigerians don't know history, so we can't start forging history on stage yet. Let's actually know what happened before we begin to play with it. So I'm currently writing a musical, for instance, on the life of Ojukwu. I'm currently doing a musical on his life. And when I'm talking with the producer, sometimes there's a bit of you may want it to be more entertaining, but I'm very big on let it be factual. Because some people are never going to read the story. This is all they're ever going to watch. So let them get the facts straight. So we don't compromise on accuracy for entertainment's sake.
Okay, a round of applause. You say because I'm a very kind dictator, we'll move to your side of because I'm a good person like that. Okay, I can already see some hands. So beyond your own performances, you've been invested in mentoring younger poets and creating platforms for them. You spent over a decade at the Abuja Literary Society. And even yesterday, you refused to come with me to see traditional Dembe at New Road because you wanted to be with the spoken word performance yesterday. So I understand that in a time of crisis, it's vital to nurture new voices. So how does this in and of itself become an act of holding the line, an act of deliberate resistance, which is, what this entire thing is about? Then closely related to this is that heavy word that starts to look at us beyond a certain age. The issue of legacy, you start thinking of it pretty heavy, problematic stuff, which is what I'm starting to get to deal with. So in all this time of crisis, basically, how has poetry become about holding the line through your work of mentorship, of course, and then this issue of legacy, how do you come to it?
If we don't reproduce ourselves, for me, that's the zenith of success or achievement. You need to reproduce yourself. So I'm very invested at the moment in mentorship and in capacity building. It's the most important thing to me. I'm in my mid-40s now, and Nigeria is such a young country that even though I'm young in my mid-40s, but compared to the Nigerian demographic, I'm old. And we need to start investing in them, So it's something I'm very much invested in. Legacy, I'm building up young ones. So like you said, I worked with the Abuja Literary Society for almost a decade. And now I'm also building other platforms that try and bring young people together and build them to be socially conscious artists, not just artists that perform for money and entertainment, but artists that are speaking to the needs of their society as well and conscious to that fact. So it's something that I take very seriously.
He recently started the Dike Chukwumerije Foundation to particularly do this. So I think, Nana, we still have some time, right? 10 minutes? Okay, excellent. So that's about enough time to take a few questions from here. How many questions do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to take 3 questions. He's going to take those ones, and then I'll take the next 3 questions, and we'll wrap up in about 4 minutes per question. Okay? So Zara Danejo, let's have your question.
Thank you, our former king of romantic northern men. I hope you're enjoying retirement.
C'est la vie.
Also, I would like to announce to everyone that Richard is no longer the most romantic northern man. That title was taken by Kalb Salim at the community performance 2 days ago. Una no go clap. Okay, my question, DK, so lovely to see you as always. I always wanted to ask you this question, but I'm always so shy to ask. Until today, I got the courage to ask you, why are you so patriotic? Why do you believe so much in this country that seems to frustrate all of us at every point? I think a lot about all the work that you've done, and like I've known you all these years, and you are consistent in your patriotism. So why are you so patriotic?
That's a lovely question. The lady behind Zara Danejo, and I think Dr. Jalaluddin, if I'm not mistaken, will take your question too.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Dike. I've watched one of your performances at Dubai. The title is Nigeria, This Is Who We Are. You spent 14 minutes plus reciting without a paper, without plumbing, without making any mistake. We have a lot of poets here who are trying as much as possible to be doing performance in different places with accuracy like you do. What do you do in this training yourself to be this great when speaking? And also, I want to ask you this question. I know calmness is part of your nature. When you speak in every way you are, people stop everything to listen because of your calmness. Do you think when you're reciting your poetry, you can be fast and people will assimilate what you're saying? Or if you are calm and speaking, no matter what you're saying, people would be more indulged into what you're saying than being as fast as the way some other people are doing it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ali Udaladi from Gombe. I would like to appreciate you, sir, for this insightful session. I actually got a quote that there is the rhetoric of tribalism in Nigeria, but then there is also the reality of humanity. And especially someone coming from Gombe, I appreciate you for your tour. Although I was absent, actually studying at Bayero University, Kano then, but a lot of our literary community attended and appreciated what you did. So my question is, in your own opinion, what is the position of arts in national development, especially with respect to Nigeria? And we know when we talk about national development, whatever is not economically productive, for instance, or relatively less economically productive as manufacturing and other sectors of the economy is tend to be overlooked. So what is the position of arts in our national development? Thank you.
My sister, what?
Sorry, please, please,
Okay.
those who are at the back, you can come in and join us, or please, you can move out. Please, come in, sit and join us, or move out. I know the rain has forced you to be here, but you really don't have to. Please.
The answer is I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. It's just in my heart. I'm being myself. So I don't know. Because I asked myself that question too. Like, why? And I just don't know. I love my country. I love it. I grew up here, and I grew up mixed. You know, I'm an Igbo guy. I was born in Lagos. I schooled in Abuja. My first girlfriend was from Gombe State. I can't believe I said it on camera. I'm sorry. I should have told her. So my heart is everywhere, so I can't help myself. I really can't. Yes, I think memorization. The baseline is repetition. Somebody said it on a panel here. Repeat. Whatever repetition you have to do, rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. There are other memorization techniques, but repetition is the baseline. So I also use visualization. I visualize. I also use structure. There's something I call structure. If I were doing a class, I'll break it down. So there are other memorization techniques that I use, but the baseline is rehearsal. I say rehearse, the person said 200 times, but for me at least 21 times from start to finish without mistake. If you make a mistake, cancel, start again. Do it at least 21 times without error. I also think that being calm helps to pass your message across. If you're doing Islam, it's different. But if you're talking to an audience, people, I don't know if anybody remembers that exchange between Professor Jega and
yeah.
you can see what calmness does. You know, it was a demonstration in the power of just being calm, right? And I really believe in it. So calmness helps communication a lot. Yeah. Then the role of art in nation building. I believe that art can help us to discover our shared humanity. Because the fastest way to live somebody else's life is to read their story. So if we are reading each other's stories, in the classes I do on empathy, I always give the example of Born on a Tuesday by El Nathan John that really humanized the Almajiri and helped a lot of us out see. You don't have to give a lecture, just put us in the shoes of a character and you build a bridge. And unfortunately, every other country that is developed understands the power of art, and that's why they invest in it. And the day we have a government that is truly interested in nation building, the day we have a government that is truly interested in nation building, they will invest in the arts. That day hasn't yet come, but it will come.
Thank you. Move to this side now. Yeah, my friend in brown. Then Suleiman Usman Yusuf, you had. Okay. So my friend.
Okay, thank you very much.
And besides Suleiman.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dike. I am Abdurabi. I have two important questions to ask. First, you performed on different stages in Nigeria generally. The first time I watched your performance, I felt that that's the actual meaning of unity because of the resonance of the performance, the wording and everything. But there is the issue of language. I know in some of the places you went, some were not able to understand the language that you are able to use. How do you deal with the issue of language, especially to the audiences that are not able to understand the English language or the pidgin? That's number one. Number two is about performance. I'm sure you have been watching the development of spoken word poetry in Nigeria generally. But when it comes to the north, I think there is this paucity of enough gadgets and materials to perform it like professionally, like what you're doing in the theater at the moment. I think there is the absence of this. How do you think the budding spoken word artists can do, for example, to have access to this theater materials? Thank you.
The man beside him. We're going to try and take all the questions.
Thank you so much. First of all, my name is Husseini Muhammad Fofilani, I'm known as Mr. Dabu. Thank you so much for your educative, intellectual, and electric final section. It is really enjoyable. Let me quickly go to my questions. Sir, you grew up in the environment where reading culture was championed, encouraged. To my utter dismay, reading culture has sunken into ground in so many parts of Nigeria. So what do you do as a literary advocate to restore it or to revitalize it? Thank you so much, sir.
My friend in black, besides
Mr. Dike, somewhere you said, and I quote, if you cannot buy land unless you are a native, and cannot find work unless you are a native, and cannot feel safe unless you are a native, how can we then say we are not primitive? And you concluded no culture is older than being human. That is your passionate, I am just quoting from a poem where you make passionate appeal for national unity. But don't you think most of this your advocacy are more utopian than pragmatic? Some people say the issue of giving indigenous certificates and all that provides a certain sense of belonging to minority ethnic groups in a lot of states, whereby others can easily dominate them if such indigenship and this argument is not there. So what I'm saying is that, do you think your advocacy can really be attained looking at our reality? Thank you.
There are two other questions. I think there's Nancy and then there's Manny.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Thank you for the presentation. My concern is you have already, everything has been taken care of. The only thin line that I'm seeing is proper integration of poetry and theater arts. In the 60s, during Sardauna and 70s, that's what they did. They used to do a lot of programs in national televisions and radio programs. And it played, in fact, on the grown-up students, on what we have been talking about, what is it, the patriotism. So my call and prayer to you and the team is to continue integrating theater arts and the poetry, because the reading culture that people were talking about is going to go down like that, because nowadays we don't have that time. But the emotion, at the day one, I have been reading the poetry of Nasiba, but that theater art, that demonstration, make impact to me than reading. So, and again, we don't have tribalism in Nigeria, sincerely speaking. We are already integrated. So my concern is keep on what we are doing, and Nigeria is a good country, and the Nigerian system has already given us the ground for doing all these activities. That's why we see us doing Kano International Poetry Festival without seeing police and seeing concern. So Nigeria is a good country, and the onus is on all of us to integrate theater arts and poetry.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Nancy, you'd get the final bite of the cookie, as it were. Nancy is behind there. Okay, and I think I can see Habiba Malumfashi. Okay, no, it's not.
No,
Nancy.
You're asking on my behalf.
It's the last question.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed the conversation. Straight to the point. We've been talking about poetry, art, and a change of mentality away from tribal. I don't like the word tribalism. It has very colonial connotations. But I'm asking, how can we, number one, disrupt thinking patterns? Because most of the things that we complain about is because of a pervasive thinking pattern. And that is why when we have any new president or governor or the rest, it's the same thing, because we have been programmed to think in a certain way. So how can we use arts to disrupt these thinkings that have been put in our minds by a colonial educational system? Then how can we deconstruct language? Because I know language is a very powerful tool in peace building and education. So how do you deconstruct language around what to understand as development, what to understand as nationhood? And then finally, how can we decolonize our learning systems so that we are not trying to be like the West? We are not trying to be Western, we are trying to be who we are, and we are developing according to our own authentic, self-brought up values, not trying to be like Americans or the British.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Dike, take all those.
Okay, the question, the first question on language. I can't do everything. I can't speak to everybody because I don't have the gift of languages. So I'm hoping that the people that I have been able to reach will then reach the people that they can reach. It's a tag team. So even though I can't speak all the local languages in Nigeria, my message has reached some people, and I'm hoping that it will influence them to be able to speak into their own demographics. But your language is very important, and every time I come into town and I'm driving through markets, wherever I am, I always think to myself, all these things you're saying, until they reach this place, it won't. So somehow it has to touch ground, but it may not be me that is able to carry the message in there. On the issue of theater, spaces, equipment, and everything, I like to advise people to start with what they have. Because that was also how, in Abuja, we don't have a theater. Abuja is the capital city of Nigeria. But Abuja has no theater. So we had to make do with the spaces we could find, whatever equipment we can find. We don't have standard equipment. But please do what you can with what you have. How can we revive the reading culture? That's what we're doing. We have to make reading appealing to young people. And sometimes that means changing how we represent it. We can't just do it like the old school way. We may have to introduce some music, we may have to introduce some drama, things that make them laugh so that they can accept reading. I currently have two sons, 9 and 5, and they don't like to read. So I say I'm a poet. People cannot say you don't like to read. They prefer to watch TV. So I'm trying to find a way to make reading better for them. So it's the same challenge, but if as parents, we all take it seriously and say, I will not raise a child that does not like to read, and find ways to make them understand the importance of reading, then we'll all be contributing to that struggle. All right? Then my brother Ahmad, who always asks these difficult questions. There's nothing wrong with being utopian. We don't have to get there. We just have to move out of where we are. All right? So they say that aim for the sky and you may get to the top of a tree, and that's still okay. I always tell people that Nigeria may never become a fully integrated country where any Nigerian can represent every Nigerian. That's a utopian ideal. But we can get to a place where we are more accommodative of each other. That is still progress. That is still improvement. And on the issue of indigenship, my own take is that even before Nigeria existed, when in the pre-colonial days, when we were still kingdoms and states, we had traditional ways of integrating strangers. People used to migrate. It's not, Lord Lugard did not invent migration. People used to migrate. There are people that are now Kano indigenes that came from somewhere, and traditionally they were integrated. So these are not foreign concepts. We have the walls that we hold up today are very artificial. There is no way you can say that integration can happen because you're obstructing a natural process. So even if it's for local communities to sit down and decide what it will take for us to accept you as one of us, maybe the constitution should not impose it. Maybe as local communities we should sit down and even if you say you must live amongst us for 25 years, you must speak our language, you must adopt our religion, you must marry our, or yeah, write it down. Let us know that this is what it takes to be integrated in this community. I don't think that is utopian. I think it is very practical. As for NAPSIN, I will not even attempt to answer your question because it's a whole PhD you're asking me. You are the one that did the PhD. Answer it in your next research.
So I have one question for Dike. Have you seen any of your mentees respond to crisis in ways that surprised or inspired you? And finally, what's that one piece of advice you give a young poet who feels powerless in the face of today's challenges?
We just had a recent example. We just finished our Building Bridges Cohort 2, where we trained young creatives on using their arts to tackle the issue of bias and bigotry. And I can see Hawa, a lot of our alumni. And one of our alumni went back home and went straight into a crisis in his own home, where the mother wanted to rent out some rooms in their house, and the tenants there, they're Yoruba, and the tenants that wanted to take the rooms were Hausa, and this is in Lagos. And everybody was telling her not to take in Hausa tenants, that she shouldn't bring in Hausa people here. And he was just coming back from our training, and he thought to himself, what's the point of all this training I just received if I come back and I'm not able to apply it. So he spoke to the mom and said that as long as they are decent people and they are good people, their ethnicity doesn't matter. And in the end, the mom was able to rent the rooms out to them. It looks like a small thing, but these are the little changes we need people to make in their lives. I don't believe in all this big law and policy. If in your everyday life you are discriminating, then it doesn't matter what the president is doing. You are the problem. So it's important that we make these changes ourselves.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It has been my pleasure to present to you Dike Chukwumerije.
Please let's be on our feet till he gets to his seat. Wonderful, wonderful conversation. I think for me, they say, there's a saying that when it rains, the doors of heaven opens. And perhaps the heavens will accept Mr. Dike Chukwumerije's prayers of a united Nigeria on this day. We hope so, we pray so, and may it be so. And for me, what I've taken from this is